When I was about 12 or 13, my parents decided my sister and I needed to see more of this world. They booked a huge trip. To this date, the biggest, longest vacation I've ever taken, spanning 2 months and covering Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia, and other countries in Southeast Asia. I was excited, to say the least. It's a rare opportunity to see so many different exotic cultures, so different to my Australian upbringing. Every country, it had completely opposite facets to it. Rich and poor, dirty and clean, secular and superstitious. Kuala Lumpur, however, was about as high up on the westernized scale as a city can go. A beautiful, dazzling city. Our hotel was one of the most expensive and luxurious in the city. 5 stars and then some. When I walked in the first day, I was in such awe of the lobby, I swore to myself that I would come back when I got older and had the money. I grabbed a business card from the front desk and I pocketed it without much thought. It was after one of our outings that my sister and I returned to the hotel to meet up with the parents. We stepped into the elevator and we smiled at the bellhop adorned in regal red uniform. Despite his clear fatigue, he managed to return the sentiment. 22nd floor, please, I said to him. Yes, sir, he replied in perfect English. As his white-gloved hand moved toward the elevator control panel and skimmed upward, I couldn't help but notice something. The button for the 21st floor was missing, crudely pried out by what I could only imagine was a screwdriver. He tapped the button for our floor, and we ascended smoothly as the setting sun poured through the humongous window, lighting the city in orange and crimson. My sister glanced over at me, then to the bellhop, and lastly at the control panel. Hey, mister, why's that floor off limits? The bellhop looked at her. His eyelids were droopy, as if he hadn't slept in ages. The 21st floor is off limits to everyone except hotel staff. But why? I am not permitted to say. But that kind of answer doesn't fly with a 12-year-old and a 16-year-old. We pestered him, lightheartedly of course, and after a bit of a chuckle, he finally gave in. A famous actress in our country stayed on that floor just a few weeks ago. One of my favorites, very young and beautiful. She passed away in her room, I'm afraid. To our people, that is very bad luck. No one wanted to stay on that floor for a while. We lost some business as a result. The manager decided to seal off the entire floor and completely remodel it. The construction workers arrive next week. Curiosity, still unsatiated, I pressed some more. How did she die? He gave me a stern look, squinted, then glared. It's not polite to talk about the dead. The doors came open and we arrived. I thanked the man and my sister gave him a generous tip. He smiled once again at us and he bid us a good evening. My sister and I, we returned to our room, showered off the sea salt and got dressed and headed out to town once again to enjoy the nightlife. It turns out my parents went to see a show somewhere on the other side of town. So us siblings, we took a nice, long walk in the hot, humid night. We returned later that night, showered again, and laid in our beds watching cable TV for a couple of hours. When there was nothing left to watch, we struck up conversation. The lady on the 21st floor came up almost immediately. We hypothesized about the manner of her death. But really, we spent the most time talking about what could be on that floor. A murderer? A ghost? We eventually tired and then resigned ourselves to sleep. The lights shut off and I dozed off almost immediately. I dreamt of furniture covered in white sheets, a drawn bath, soft, ivory skin. I awoke to the sound of a click, then static. I gazed about the room and I noticed that the TV had turned itself on. The channel wasn't HBO, only white noise. I reached around blindly for the remote, but then I remembered I had left it on the mini fridge on the other side of the room. My sister was still sound asleep. I crawled out of bed, walked up to the set and switched it off. Nestling myself once again in my bed, I closed my eyes and it switched on again. My sister woke up at this point, rubbed her eyes and rolled to the other side of the bed. "Turn that off. It's not me. I don't even have the remote." An ear-splitting ring made us both shoot upright in our cots. My heart jumped into my throat. Oh, for crying out loud, who the hell would call so late? I snatched the phone up to stop that infernal racket, and I answered with a sharp hello. Nothing. Not even breathing like in those horror movies. I stayed on the line for a full minute before I hung up. Who was it? My sister shut off the TV for the second time and then grabbed the remote and brought it by her nightstand for convenience. There was no one, not a peep. Right then and there, we both felt very uneasy. We looked over at the TV, sat in bed, and waited in the darkness. I flicked on the lights. "Hey, do you want to go on an adventure?" She looked at me like I was mentally ill. "No. Wait. Yes. If you're going to do something stupid, you can't do it alone. Mum and Dad would kill me if something happened." I threw on some jeans, picked up my folding knife and keys and headed for the door. She got dressed and ran after me, but I was already down the stairs, waiting for her before she caught up. In front of me was the door, marked 21, adorned with shiny chains. But the lock, it was unfastened. "Kenneth, this is stupid." I yanked the chains off and I tossed them to the cold, hard ground. In my haste to explore, I left my sandals in the room. I drew a deep breath and then pushed. A little too hard, I suppose. I stumbled into the hall and I was met with near complete darkness. Behind me, streams of light from the staircase bled into the room and died out just as quickly. I let my eyes adjust and I took a few steps in. The hallway looked just like ours upstairs. Same fanciful carpet pattern and wallpaper. The furniture, however, was covered in white sheets, pristine and dust-free. Tables, lounge chairs, and mirrors stood before me like obfuscated figures. At the end of the hall, I saw the room directly below ours. The clouds outside passed just long enough for a sliver of moonlight to pour through the wide windows. And that was when I saw them. Strewn across the open doorway were yellow police lines, as in a crime scene from a police procedural drama. In mixed English and Malaysian, they said plainly, "Do not cross." I approached the doorway, slowly. Moonlight came and disappeared from the windows. My sister, she stayed at the door of the staircase, frozen in place. As I inched forward, I felt it get distinctively colder. Not just that tingle down my spine, but the air, me, the white sheet spectres watched me intently. When I finally made it those 30 feet to that open doorway, I stopped. Looking inward, I could see the interior outline of a carbon copy of my hotel room. Except it was barren. No furniture, no carpet, no curtains. Nothing except the concrete and patched drywall. The windows were boarded up hastily. Neon lights shone through the cracks, but not enough to illuminate anything. I reached out my hand to push aside the police line. The moment I made contact, I felt a hard chill run up and down me.
"Turn back now. Turn back, and I will not make you suffer."
I heard those words, not from my ears, but from within me. My entire body recoiled away from the doorway, and I stood there, shocked. I scanned the room. Nothing. I turned to my sister, and suddenly I could hear her breathing heavily from across the hall. I ran toward her as fast as I could. Together, we slammed the door marked 21 shut. As soon as we made it back to our room, I flicked on the lights and sat in bed. My sister slipped under the covers and began to cry. You felt it, didn't you?" I barely managed to get the words out of my mouth. She sobbed harder. Below us was the chill, a pit in my stomach that would not go away. We left the lights on and the TV set to a soccer channel the rest of the night. When the morning came, we brought our suitcases down to the lobby without a single word. Our parents stood by the front desk. "How did you guys like this place?" Dad was practically beaming. "It was really expensive, but I wanted to give you guys a chance to live a little for once." We gave our unenthusiastic replies in the affirmative. As we walked out into the sun, my mum spoke up. "Such a nice place. Did you know an actress died here only a few weeks back?" My sister and I shot her a look. "She was found naked in the bathroom, hung herself in the tub. It's still in the news." As we walked out, I picked up a local newspaper from a nearby stand. Sure enough, there she was on the front page. A beautiful, raven-haired Asian woman, barely out of her teens. I boarded the bus with my family and we set off to another city, another hotel. The rest of the trip was wonderful, and we returned home well rested and very tanned. I still have that business card from the hotel. It sits on my dresser in my parents' house. For the sake of preserving their business, I will not name the hotel, nor will I name the actress. Whatever demons led her to do what she did may lie where they are now. But I still wonder what would have happened if I'd kept going. What if I didn't stop at those lines and stepped into that barren, cold room and into the bathroom where she had died?